Our next goal is to get the table view to show the results of the search. We don't have an actual search process in place just yet, but we can fake it. We know that a table view displays data by querying and executing the implementations of the UI table view data source protocol methods. By default, table view controllers created in a storyboard act as the data source and delegate to the table views they contain. So let's go to our main.storyboard file. And in the table view controller that we just added, right-click and disconnect that outlet for the data source so that we can create a separate object to handle this responsibility. So let's go ahead and create a new group. We'll call this data. What am I doing? There we go. Okay, hit enter, data sources. And in here, we're going to add a new file. We'll make this a CocoaTouch class, hit next. This is going to be a subclass of NSObject. And we'll name this search results data source. Remember that the object acting as the data source to a table view needs to inherit from NSObject to satisfy the constraints of the data source protocol, which basically states that the object needs to be an Objective-C class. In here, we'll give the class a simple init method. So we'll just, for now, call super.init. Let's add a private stored property named data to serve as the data model. And we'll make this variable so that we can mutate it, because every time we get in a new set of results, we need to update the data model. This data source is going to serve the table view with instances of artists to display based on our search. Since when we load the table view, we won't have executed a search and won't have any data to begin with, we're initializing this property to an empty array. Now, once we get the new data, we'll want to update this. So let's add a method. We'll say func update with artists artist. We'll say data equal artists. Now let's add conformance to the data source protocol so that we can actually act as a data source. So UI table view data source protocol. For number of sections, we'll return 1, since this is just going to be a single list of search results. Let me also add a comment in here to separate this. Mark data source. For number of rows, we'll return the number of items in the data array, so data.count. For cell for row at index path, we'll first need to create a reusable cell, and for the search results, we'll do it in the same way that the iTunes app does it, and just use a basic prototype cell and assign the artist name to the text label. So here we'll say let cell equal tableview.dq reusable cell with identifier. We'll say this is result cell for index path. And here we're using an identifier result cell, which we haven't defined yet. So we'll need to go back to main.storyboard. And this is our prototype here. So make sure this is a basic cell and give it that reuse identifier. So this is result cell. Okay. The rest of the code is simple. We'll grab an artist from the data source. So we'll say let artist equal data indexPath.row. And we'll assign the artist name to the cell's text label property. Finally, we return the cell. Now, back in the table view, we can create an instance of this data source and assign it to a stored property. So our table view is in here, search results controller. At the top, we'll add a new stored property, and we'll say let data source equals search results data source. We also need to let the table view know that this is our new data source. So in viewDidLoad, we'll say tableview.dataSource equal data source. Okay, so here's the bit where we fake it. If we run the app now, there won't be anything displayed, and this is the right behavior. Instead, what we want is for the data source to update with new data every time we enter a search term. Since we get updated when a user enters a search term by means of this protocol method in UI search results updating, for now, let's get rid of this and update the data source with our stub data and then reload the table view. So we'll say data source dot update with artist, and here we'll say stub dot artist. And then finally, we'll call table view dot reload data so that it runs through the data source methods again with this new fake data and displays our results. Now this is just a single artist, so we need to make this an array. Okay, so now if we run the app, when we launch our UI flow, tap on the search bar, you'll see that the update method is called and our table view should now reload with the stub data. Perfect. So now you see the utility of creating this fake data. Once we get the networking code in place, all we need to do is replace this one line of code and update the data source with the actual data, and everything should work just as expected. We know what the final results will look like. In the next video, let's implement the functionality to tap on a search result and get a list of albums.